726-1380. That's 404-726-1380. The Mental Space on News and Talk 1380 WAOK and on the Odyssey app.
Welcome back to the Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK on your Odyssey app. Search for News and Talk 1380 WAOK. We are live now on the Flow Television Network as well as at Sean Garvey ATL on Instagram and at 1380 WAOK on IG. Daryl Fuzzle II, a vibrant 23-year-old student at Georgia Gwinnett Community College. Tragically, he exhibited signs of mental illness and was undergoing treatment when he was killed on April 13, 2023. My executive producer, Simone, let's go ahead and play that news clip.
Is that loud? It's going to get?
Medical center in Riverdale, but in April, his family said he was somehow able to get out despite being suicidal and homicidal. They say that when it happened, security wasn't notified and there was no lockdown. And he went to a construction site where police were called. According to attorneys, he was shot after lunging at Riverdale officers with scissors. The family is now suing several healthcare companies, the medical facility, and others.
They knew he was hitting himself in the head with a hammer. They knew, they were told, the officers, when they arrived, they were told that my son was hurting himself. They had a responsibility to call crisis. They had a responsibility to treat my son like they would treat their own son. And they treated him like a dog in the street and shot him dead 9 times.
Wow. Very heart-wrenching when you hear that. And of course, that was the mother of the 23-year-old Georgia Gwinnett Community College student, Daryl Fuzzle II. We have both the mother and the father in the studio. I want to go to the mother first, Miss Kimberly Fuzzle. Now, I heard, just for clarity purposes, I heard the reporter pronounce your son's last name as Purcell, but it's Fuzzle for just clarity purposes.
Yes, it's Fussell, like Russell.
Russell for Fuzzle. Okay, thank you so much for addressing that for clarity purposes. Welcome to the Mental Space. I can just only imagine how you feeling right now at this point, but just let the listeners know. We're going to go to the beginning, of course, but how is your mental health? Most importantly, how is your mental health?
My mental health right now is in a space of struggling. I am very grateful for my counselor that I see, because some days I don't want to get out of bed. Some days I don't want to do things. I also am not the same person I was before our son was killed. I was always super jovial. I'm an extrovert, and I love being around people. And since April, I get anxiety with being around people. I experience panic attacks when I have to go outside of our business and outside of our home. And so I'm struggling daily.
Okay. And I want to make sure that I put the telephone number out there to our listeners to call in, 404-726-1380, 404-726-1380. We are also joined by the father of the son, Daryl Fuzzle II. We have Father Daryl Fuzzle. Thank you so much for coming on the Mental Space this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. How is your mental health?
I'm broken. This is something that we never imagined that we would have to go through as a family. Similar to my wife, where it's hard to get out of bed. It's and I'm the introvert of the relationship, but I just stay in a constant state of anxiety and panic. We have a business, and I also work a day job that I cannot work because of the stress of this situation. And I've even been hospitalized a couple times over it, where my mental health is manifesting into my physical health. And it's, it's a struggle every single day, every single moment.
Mm-hmm. I want to go over to the sister, because while my executive producer Simone was playing the news clip, courtesy of WXIA TV Channel 11 here in Atlanta, sister Dr. Deshauna Ware, and you don't have to use that mic. You can use your mother's mic here next to you. I saw you leaning over to your mother, and tell us why, when you heard that clip, tell us why you felt that way, why you pulled close to your mother.
I'm the oldest of my parents' 6 children. And the next oldest after me is 4 years younger. And so I'm the oldest by a lot. Me and Boss Man were 9 years apart. And so I look at my siblings like my first kids. And so to lose my brother in this way, and to have my parents experience this pain, is just heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
To hear my father scream is heart-wrenching. To hear my mom moan and sob is just heart-wrenching. And to experience things without my brother has just been unbearable. My brother was killed April 13th. My mom's birthday is April 28th. And so
3 days apart. Yeah.
And so going through my mom's first birthday without him, and then Mother's Day is in May, and then Father's Day is in June, and then my birthday is July. Me and my sister, our birthdays are July, and my brother was born on Christmas, and so we're not looking forward to our first Christmas without him. And so just knowing what's in store for our family, and what we're currently dealing with now is just really heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be using the word heart-wrenching throughout the duration of the show, because it is heart-wrenching, especially not only hearing that clip, but just experiencing the emotions, the trauma, the anxiety coming out of this situation. And I also want to let people know that we do have the team from the Cochran firm in the studio, and we're coming up on a break, but I definitely want to talk to one of the people that are representing the family in this matter. We are joined also by Jane Lamberty, partner of the Cochran firm. And Miss Jane, I got questions to ask you, of course, and questions to ask everybody. We want this to be a call to action type of episode. We want the community to get involved, and we want lawmakers, politicians, people, community leaders, pillars in the community to be informed on this matter thoroughly, because we have to do something about this circumstance when it comes to how we deal and how we handle with people that are suffering some form of mental issue, mental health crisis, mental illness. We got to talk about it and
Absolutely.
do something about it. So
Absolutely.
when we come back, we're going to talk to you. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about the type of guy that Daryl was. We're going to start from when he was a baby, when he was a kid, when he was a teenager. We're going to talk about his life story and so much more. But please call in, everybody. 404-726-1380 is the telephone number. The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
Well, I represent Detroit City, and I'm hanging out with my man, Sean Garvey. You know what it is.
1380 WAOK is live and local with the Rashad Ritchie Morning Show.
What's happening? This your man, Rashad Ritchie, the realest man on radio.
On point with Wandel and Stokes.
It is on point with Wandel and Stokes, always encouraging you to live well.
WAOK. The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK, and also on the Odyssey app, 1380 WAOK. All right, so just to let you all know, we're having some technical difficulties on air, which is common when you're doing live radio. But don't worry, folks, don't fret. We are on the Flow Television Network. We're on the Flow Television Network. We're on the Flow Television Network, YouTube, Beat Break Radio, and also on Android TV, on your Fire TV, and on your Apple TV. We're also on social media, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, 1380 WAOK. Make sure you follow us there, by the way. 1380 WAOK, Sean Garvey ATL on Instagram. If you're just now tuning in, we are talking to the family and the legal team of Daryl Fuzzle II, who was a 23-year-old student at Georgia Gwinnett Community College, tragically was killed on April 13th after leaving from a psychiatric facility at a local hospital in the greater metro Atlanta area, out in the outskirts of Atlanta. Talk to us, mother, dad, talk to us, what kind of son was Daryl Fuzzle? What type of son was he growing up with you all?
Daryl was the sweetest, super independent. Even though he is the third child out of the six, he would have told you he was the oldest. And my oldest always thought that was funny about him. So, because our oldest are two girls, and then we have the four boys. So, but Daryl Lynn, who we also, his nickname is Boss Man. So, I'll refer to him as Boss Man. Yes, okay. He was named Boss Man after his grandfather, who has passed on. And from the time that Boss Man was born, he ruled the room. He walked in the room. He ruled that room. Nobody would let him go without crying or anything. That's just who he was. He was a light in every space. And so his grandfather nicknamed him Boss Man because of that. Oh, wow. Wow. What else can you talk to us about him? You said he was a sweet kind. He was referred to as the boss man. What did he ever engage in any type of sporting activities, any extracurricular activities? Oh, yeah. Talk to us more about him, Dad.
Yeah, so he did football early on from the Pee Wee time.
Yeah, I see you got the cap on. It says coach, by the way, too. So did you have to coach Daryl?
I did. Okay. With all the boys who participated in sports. We as a family, we just kind of gathered around that, and he was, like I said, everybody loved him. Everybody he just was a nice, kind spirit. Growing up, even the funny thing we talk about all the time, like even some of his older brother friends would like him more than his older brother. Yeah, because he was just so, he was just so cool, laid back, very down to earth. Average trouble like any other kids or stuff like that. But one thing, he would talk. He would talk a lot of the class. Like the teacher was like, yeah, he gets his work, but he sure does talk, a lot.
What did Daryl want it to be? Because it said he went to Georgia Gwinnett Community College. What did he major in, and what was his aspirations? So he majored in business, but he did that with his love of actually wanting to be an engineer. He wanted to do studio engineering, so he loved music. He wanted to produce. One of the stories I told about him at his homegoing was that he transformed his bedroom closet into a studio. Like, really? Yes. He sounds a little bit like me. That's what. Yes, he went out and he purchased everything. He saved his money, and he purchased really good equipment. Yeah. And he put up sound barriers
all throughout that closet, took the closet stuff apart and made it into a studio and recorded music and talk right there.
Made it into his own.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Let me go over to Jane Lamberty, partner for the Cochran firm. Thank you so much for coming into the studio and sitting with us. Let's go ahead and get right into the story. We played the news clip earlier. Give us the full context of the full story on what happened to the dearly departed Darryl Fuzzle.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for allowing us to be here. And it is my honor and my firm's honor and that of Kevin Adamson, who's co-counsel, to represent this wonderful family. And it's not unusual with the mental health disorder of schizophrenia to start appearing, especially in males, when they're in their early 20s. And Darryl started showing those signs, and his parents were aware of that, and they loved him, and they did the right thing. They took him to North Georgia Medical Center, where the psychiatric team determined that he was a threat to himself and to others, and they instituted something called a 1013. What
is that? What's the 1013?
Sure. The 1013 is something that a peace officer or a physician can initiate to change someone's legal status from being allowed to come and go to being involuntarily committed for an evaluation. So you want to make sure they're not going to hurt themselves or others. And often when you're in that mental illness, especially in the initial period, you're not stable. You need to get stabilized with medicine and with talk therapy. And so often people who are in that crisis don't realize they're in that crisis. And so others who realize that they're a threat to themselves or others can what's called 1013 them. And that's what they did at North Georgia Medical Center. And then what they did was then move him to Riverwoods, which is a psychiatric facility for treatment. And while he was at Riverwoods, Darryl had a medical episode, or so they thought, where he wasn't responsive. They were concerned. So they had him transferred over to Southern Regional for an evaluation. The breakdown here was the failure of the communication between Riverwoods and Southern Regional to let them know that Darryl was a gentleman who had just been diagnosed with a psychiatric disease. He hadn't been medically stabilized.
Yeah.
He was at risk for an elopement, meaning leaving, and no one took the appropriate precautions to make sure that didn't happen.
Yeah. I want to dive more into it when we come back from the break. And then once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch us on the Flow Television Network, YouTube at Beat Break Radio. So we're TV now. By the way, we're TV now, which you get a chance to not only hear us, hear our story, or hear the mother and the father's story, but to also see us live in the studio as we engage in a very important conversation on the tragic death of 23-year-old Darryl Fuzzle II. We're going to talk more about it when we come back from the break. And stick around, stay tuned. You can put it in the comment section on 1380 WAOK on our IG page or at Sean Garvey ATL on my Instagram page. And let us know your thoughts. We are here for you. This is The Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
Clear.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Earthquake, and my main man, my only man when I hit the ATL. My main man, Sean Garvey.
Don't let your dirty carpet spook you. Call Zero Res Carpet Cleaning to maintain an insanely clean home. Only Zero Res uses their ZR water that cleans better than a detergent without leaving residue. Take advantage of their fall sale going on now.
Welcome back to the Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK. Got news coming up in just a few minutes. If you're just tuning in, we are still experiencing some technical difficulties. I think my mic is shot up. It's not shot up. I mean, destroyed, or what have you. But you can watch us on YouTube, Beat Break Radio. That is the YouTube channel where you can check out shows like The Mental Space. You can also go to the Flow Television Network. That's the Flow on your Roku TV, on your Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, and wherever you get your streaming content from. You can also watch us live on IG at Sean Garvey ATL. Make sure you follow me on IG at Instagram at Sean Garvey ATL, and also on 1380 WAOK, talking to the family and the legal team for Daryl Fuzzle II, 23-year-old student at Georgia Gwinnett Community College, who tragically died on April 13, 2023, after leaving a psychiatric facility at Southern Regional Medical Center, or at least on the property of Southern Regional Medical Center. Mom, Dad, the mother and father of Daryl Fuzzle II, talk to us with you, Miss Kimberly. Do you mind if I call you Mama Kimberly? By the way, Mama Kimberly.
A lot of people do actually.
Okay.
So yeah.
Mama Kimberly, what was that phone call like? I could imagine that the first phone call that you and Papa Daryl received, it was a phone call saying your son has been involved in an accident.
Actually, the initial call that we received was from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, so otherwise known as the GBI. And they told us, they asked us who we were, and I told them, and I was crying, and I asked them, I said, did you find my son? And they didn't answer at first, and then I cried out again. I said, did you find my son? They said, we have found your son, and we want to come talk to you. And honestly, Sean, I knew when they told me that. I knew.
So were you very speechless at this time?
Yeah, I told them our address in Gwinnett County, and they were coming all the way from Clayton County. And it was late at night, so they didn't end up arriving until I believe it was after midnight. But I knew. I had already expressed that to my husband, Daryl. And everybody was saying, don't say that, Kim. It could be anything. Maybe they're coming to tell you something else. And I remember going online and looking on my phone on Google and seeing what was the GBI's purpose, what did they do, I went to prayer. I went into prayer. I was devastated. I didn't know what to think. But honestly, initially I thought that he had passed away because he was at the hospital because he had blood clots in his lungs. So I think that I would pass this off to my husband to say what happened next.
Okay.
So, yeah, we kind of debated, like, try to hold out some hope, but we, kind of knew, like, it was not going to be good news. And they arrived, and I let them in, and I sat on the couch, and the two officers showed me a picture. It was like, is this your son? And I was like, yes, this is my son. And it was a male and a female. The gentleman, he was like kneeling on his knees when he showed him, and then he stood up. He was like, well, there's no easy way to say it, but your son is dead. And my other children, began to cry out, and I was like, okay. And I kind of sat there in shock. And I asked him, I said, well, how? Because again, we were thinking like, he passed away from the blood clots or something like that he was being treated for. he said it was a police-involved shooting, and like my whole world just like, what? What do you mean, like police-involved shooting? And he was like, yeah, we they don't have a lot of information, and he was like, yeah, but it was a police-involved shooting. You'll be notified, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, let me go to the sister. I'm going to ask you this question.
Sean, before you do that,
sure, go ahead. Let's go over to let's go over to Jane Liberty.
I think it's really important for the listeners to know the type of parents that Mr. and Mrs. Fussell are, because what happened was they received a call from the hospital saying their son was not responsive and to get some medical information. And then they decided to go to the hospital. And on the way, the hospital called them and said, oh, don't bother coming up. Your son had left. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
He is involuntarily committed. He's supposed to be watched. He's at a risk to himself and others. And they said, oh, you don't have to come up. But they went up and they went searching for their son for several hours. They searched all around Southern Regional and could not find them because Southern Regional didn't timely call the police nor institute any lockdown. But these are the parents who told Southern Regional that their son had a mental illness. So they were up there looking for them. The last thing they ever suspected was to get a call that he was dead from being shot by the police.
Right.
Because they had gone out and looked for that. They were doing the job that Southern Regional and the police should have been doing.
Let me ask you this, now that you pivoted in that direction. Maybe this is a question for you, Ms. Jane, or to the family, but what was the initial reaction to the situation? Was the anger more towards the police, or was the anger more towards the medical center? Like, what did that anger pivot to?
So, as my parents have mentioned, right away, your first thought is like, I remember I called my best friend right away as soon as my dad had said we got a call from GBI. And I would, like my parents had said, I'm on the phone with my best friend saying, I guess my brother just collapsed and died. Because like that is what it is. Like we thought the blood clot has this large. And so when my mom told me that it was a police involved shooting, of course your frustration, because you know what has been going on with your family member. Me and my parents have been with my brother for 6 days leading up to his killing. And so we knew that he was at Southern Regional. We knew that he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. We knew that he was on medication. And so when my mom says, oh, he was involved in a police involved shooting, like you can't help but be angry because that means that somebody didn't do their job.
Right.
My brother was missing. When my parents told me that my brother was missing at 3:00 in the afternoon, I immediately right away was like, I'm so nervous that my brother is gonna get shot, like just to be frank. And so for this to happen, for it to be real because people didn't do their job, is just so frustrating. So at the beginning, yeah, you're frustrated at the police because they're like, this is my brother, another black man, like shot. But then you're like, oh wait, we left him in other people's care. And they didn't do what they were supposed to do. We left him at Riverwood. They took him to Southern Regional, and my brother just walked out the door. Like, how do you do that? How do you just let somebody walk out the door? And so the frustration is spread out evenly, because there would have been no police encounter had people done what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the when we got the initial news, we heard from him that he was in the hospital. We didn't even hear from Riverwoods that he was in the hospital. He called us and said he was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he was initially, the reason why he was in the hospital is he had been unresponsive. So we're not sure why he was unresponsive, but that's the word that they kept using. And then once he was transported to the hospital, he did call us, and that was like 5 a.m. in the morning. And then the next time that we knew he was unresponsive was when I get a call from a social worker saying, well, I can't talk to your son, asking questions. Well, why?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, well, he's unresponsive. What do you mean he's unresponsive?
If you all don't mind, we only got about 30 minutes left of the broadcast here, and I want to bring the other people that are involved in the case with you all, if I may, because like I said, we have people representing you all in this case, and it's an ongoing case. But the question I'm going to ask you all before we go to break is, and you don't have to answer it right now, but the question I want to ask is, what made you all want to represent the family? What was it about this case that you all was so heavily passionate about that you wanted to take it on? So hold on to your answers. We will be right back. It is the Mental Space with Sean Garvey. We got news coming up right here on the News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
AOK. So you can tune in for Mr. Garvey's Mental Space, okay?
Breaking news, sports, weather, coming from the WAOK News Center.
Newly elected House Speaker Mike Johnson says the chamber will get back to work immediately.
We went through a lot to get here, but we are ready to govern, and that will begin right away.
WAOK, Sean Garvey, The Mental Space. And I'm almost speechless, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very speechless. We've been having some conversations offline with the family of Daryl Fuzzle II, who was gunned down by the hands of police. 23 years old, Georgia Gwinnett Community College, leaving a psychiatric facility on the property of Southern Regional Medical Center. And I was telling the mama and the daddy and the sister offline about this matter. It's still fresh. It's an open wound that many of us are still looking at, that are still touching. I said to you all offline, April 13th is to me, I don't know to you all, but to me, that was yesterday. That was yesterday. We're talking about this year. This is not something that happened 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, even if it did happen 30 years ago or longer than that, it's still painful. And thank goodness we have the legal team in here representing the case. Of course, there is a pending, if it's okay to say, a pending lawsuit against the facility, against Southern Regional Medical Center. And joining with us right here on the Mental Space, thank you for coming. We also have Kevin Adamson with us here this evening. And apologies once again, Kevin, because we still experiencing some technical difficulties, so bear with us. But we're on YouTube, of course, Beat Break Radio, and also on Facebook, Sean Garvey, and other streaming platforms that you can watch us live. But Kevin, let's say I did ask the question before we went to break. Why did you, Jane, and the great people at the Cochran Law Firm Group, why did you all decide to take on this case? What was it about this?
So a family friend of the Fuzzles called me and said, I want you to meet with this family. And they came to my office, and they were, the whole family was there 5 or 6 hours helping me understand what happened. And before they left, I felt like I couldn't help but find justice for them. There was a bunch of unanswered questions at that point. There's still a bunch of unanswered questions at that point. But the thing that kept popping off to me in my head was mental health can't be a death sentence. We've got to be able to do something to help this family. Yeah. And if we can help this family, maybe we can keep this from happening again in the future to other families. And so I think we went through every Kleenex that my office had just purchased from our vendor in those 5 or 6 hours, but it was the most awe-inspiring. I can't. I mean, I know you've talked to the Fuzzles for the last hour or so, yeah. But I can't implore you enough that this is one of the salt of the earth, greatest families that I've ever had the opportunity to meet. And I don't just consider them clients, I consider them friends at this point. They're my people, they're my family. Yeah. And I can't not go figure out everything for them. And I knew that I needed to put together a powerhouse team to do the kind of justice that needed to be done for this family. So I called Jane at the Cochran firm, and she was kind enough to give me an ear. And once she met them, she felt exactly the same way. These are our people, they're not just our clients. What do you think, Kevin? What do you think is the hardest part of taking on this case? What do you, in your personal opinion? From the lawyer standpoint, or from the
Well,
client
let's
standpoint?
talk about from the lawyer standpoint, from the lawyer aspect, and just even from your own personal aspect, from a family man, a parent. Like, imagine you in the shoes, and you one day you got that call from your son or your daughter.
I can't imagine getting that call. I've known these folks since April of this year, and I've tried to ask myself that question. I can't imagine that call ever coming. It does not compute in my brain. But from a lawyer standpoint, this is it's one of the toughest scenarios that I'm ever going to have to do, because Jane, Lamar, me, Sam, the whole legal team is, I mean, we're committed to the justice process.
Yeah.
And what if we're not perfect with it? What if we're, we can't afford to, necessarily make mistakes, because we have to do the best thing that we can do for this family. And so we've got the best people in place to do that. And there's a mental criteria that goes along with that issue.
And Jane wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Jane.
so the hardest part of this is, let's get real, folks. Southern Regional and River Woods are not going to roll over and say, oh yeah, we did wrong. As a matter of fact, they're denying liability. Southern Regional had the nerve to say they believe everything they did was within the standard of care. And I know for a fact there are policies and procedures that they did not follow at all that resulted in this gentleman's death. So we have to dig. Yeah. We have to fight. When you're a plaintiff's attorney and you have the burden of proof, you carry that burden. You carry it for this family, and you feel it, because no corporation wants to roll over and say, oh yeah, we were wrong. You think the police want to roll over and say, oh yeah, we were wrong. Yeah, this was excessive force. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's now before the DA in Clayton County, and she's got to decide whether to even bring this to a grand jury. We don't get that. We don't get the whole GBI investigation until she decides not to prosecute, or if she does, when the criminal case is over. We've never seen the video. We've never seen the interview. We don't have any information on that.
Yeah.
That's one of the
I know we usually end the show at 9 o'clock, but if I can just have you guys hang on for just 2 more segments, I want to talk about that mental health aspect coming from this situation. I mean, we discussed the anxiety and the trauma that you all experienced, but you was telling me offline, Mama, that you've had nightmares from the incident. So let's talk about that. Let's unpeel that layer there when we come back. It is the Mental Space with Sean Garvey, News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
G-Gang here with Sean Garvey on the Mental Space. Listen, don't make room for bad news. Make every day your own good news, and always keep yourself and others in a great mental space. News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
WAOK presents On Point with Wanda Stokes. She's fresh, vibrant, and always on point. Tune in weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and learn to live well and win well.
We're going to have lots of fun together. We're going to talk about everything, from politics to fashion, from love to life, from health to wellness. I'm looking forward to our time together, and we'll always keep you on point.
care. 11 Alive's Molly Oak is live outside the hospital for us tonight. Molly, you spoke with his parents earlier today.
Daryl Fussel's parents say he was a great kid. He was just suffering. His parents and their attorneys filed a lawsuit in Clayton County yesterday saying mental health should not be a death sentence. A mother wants to know why.
Why they didn't tell them that my baby needed help? Why didn't they treat him like a patient who needed help?
Daryl Fussel's parents still have questions more than 5 months after their 23-year-old son died.
We just never imagined that we would be up here telling everybody about our son in the past tense.
The family and the attorneys say Fussell was diagnosed as schizophrenic and was involuntarily committed to Riverwood's behavioral health just days before he died because they say he was at risk of harming himself or others. 2 days later, on April 12th, Fussell was found unresponsive and transferred over to Southern Regional Medical Center. That's when the family's attorneys claim Riverwoods never told Southern Regional that Fussell was an involuntary psychiatric patient or a risk for running away. They say the hospital found that out after his parents called on the next day and then assigned someone to watch him. The lawsuit says later, on April 13th, Fussell walked right out of the facility.
He was on the 4th floor. Did they notify hospital security? No. Did they initiate what's called a hospital lockdown? Absolutely not.
Attorneys say hours later, Fussell was found at a construction site where he was hitting himself with a hammer. When Riverdale police showed up, they claimed Fussell wasn't responsive until he allegedly lunged toward officers with a pair of scissors.
They had a responsibility to treat my son like they would treat their own son. And they treated him like a dog in the street and shot him dead 9 times. 9 times, my baby.
The lawsuit says Fussell was pronounced dead at the hospital.
I don't want any more moms to feel like this.
Trying to get answers, his family is suing the medical providers involved with his care.
All right, once again, that is a news clip courtesy of WXIA TV, Channel 11 in Atlanta, as the reporter was talking about this ongoing case regarding Daryl Fussell II, shot and killed by the hands of officers after leaving a psychiatric facility at Southern Regional Medical Center. We still have the family and the legal team representing the case. It is a very hard pill to swallow when you hear that, and when you are the parents of a 23-year-old young man, mentally ill, and it's known. And I want to say, to you, Kevin, and to you, the mother. Well, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to go back to you, Kevin. What do you think more could have been done at the psychiatric center, at the property? What do you think from a legal perspective? What more could have done to prevent this from happening?
That's probably more of a Jane question than a Kevin question, because she is the med-mal guru. So if you'll give me a second, I'll let her answer.
Okay. Well, okay. We will revisit. Thank you so much, Kevin. We will revisit that question in just a few moments. But I want to go back to the mother, and as Jane is getting ready to make that transition back to our table, Mama, you said, and according to reports, your son, you all's son, Daryl and Mama, he was shot 9 times, and it brought nightmares to you. So talk to us about that, the kind of nightmares that he was getting, and just set the stage up for our listeners.
So finding out that he was shot 9 times, of course, that's just devastating in itself, but he was also grazed 2 more times. So until we know all the final details, in our mind, he was shot 11 times. And so,
including one time in the back.
Including one time in the back, that is correct, as my husband said. And So I wake up sometimes just crying because, as I'm sure other people can imagine, you've seen these visions on TVs, all kinds of shows and all kinds of things of what it looks like to be shot. That they put it out there for you to give you a visual of what it possibly could look like. And so because the situation or the case is still with the district attorney of Clayton, we haven't seen any body cam footage or anything. So we have nothing to go on but what our minds picture. So I'm still picturing my son being shot from one shoulder to another, his body racking over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it hurts every time.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm on medication, like I have night terrors, and my doctor had to prescribe something like so that I would be able to sleep because, we don't get much sleep, and this thing is just ripping and gripping and just playing havoc on our family in all type of psychological ways.
Yeah, I want to be absolutely clear that Daryl Van Fussell II did not come from a family of people who just didn't know what to do. It's like, my name is Dr. Deshauna J. Fusselware. I'm a licensed social worker, and boss man is my little brother. And that is how I introduced myself to everyone who we came into contact with, who was in charge of his care. And so when we talk about what more could be done, first of all, I'm expecting these professionals to act the same way that I would act as a licensed social worker with a client, with someone else, with their family. So number one, I'm not sending my client, this person in my care, to the hospital and not calling their emergency contact. There's no reason why my family did not know until 4 a.m. from my brother that my brother had been sent to the hospital. When we dropped him off and left him at Riverwood with our contact information, they knew how to get a hold of us. They knew our number. We went back there twice. After we dropped him off, we went to Walmart to go get him clothes and had a long conversation with staff there. So they knew exactly who we were. We talked to them. And then you get over to Southern Regional and you have a social worker, a fellow social worker, catching an attitude with my mama when she's asking questions about what's going on. And to tell my mom and my dad not to come, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be on the phone with police. We are strangers to this area. We live in Gwinnett County. So we don't know that there's a Riverdale Police Department. We're thinking that it's just Clayton County Police. Someone was supposed to take charge of that. Yeah. And then you get to the police officers. Yeah. You allegedly hear that my brother is beating his...
I want you to hang tight for one moment because we're in overtime right now, and I know our producer Simone, she has to go. So I'm going to take over behind the scenes and in front of the scenes because this is a very, very important conversation that we're having with our viewers and our listeners right here on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. So we're in overtime. We're going to go into the extended version of the mental space as we continue. I want you to not forget, put a bookmark in that. I want you to not forget what you were about to say because I want to go back to you when we come back from the break. This is the extended version of the mental space with Sean Garvey. It is News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
1380 WAOK is live and local with the Rashad Ritchie Morning Show.
What's happening? This your man Rashad Ritchie, the realest man on radio.
On point with Wandel and Stokes.
It is on point with Wandel and Stokes, always encouraging you to live well and win well.
And Too Much Truth with Derek Bozeman.
Hey, this is Derek Bozeman, ATL's own. I didn't come here, I'm from here.
The voice of the community. WVEHD3. And we're always live on the Odyssey.
WAOK. I can now hear myself. It may have something to do with me being behind the board there. Sean Garvey, the Mental Space, News Talk 1380 WAOK. This is overtime, extended version of the Mental Space. We still have the legal team and the family of Daryl Fuzzle II, 23-year-old student at Georgia Gwinnett Community College, tragically shot and killed on April 13th by the hands of police after leaving a psychiatric facility on the grounds of Southern Regional Medical Center. Going back to the sister, we of course have the mom and dad here in the studio, along with the kind people from the Cochran firm and legal counsel for the family as well. Sister, let's pick back up where we left off at regarding your brother.
Yeah. So just in terms of what should have been done with police officers, they have access to the Georgia crisis line. The Georgia crisis line should have been called as soon as people saw my brother was hitting himself in the head with a hammer. Somebody should have called the Georgia crisis line, whether it was the people who had called the police or the police themselves should have gotten the mental health resources available to law enforcement involved.
Yeah.
And so now we have a situation where people either are failing to use their common sense or are just being negligent, which is why we're here. And so I just want to be very clear, because people will have, of course, with a case like this, you'll have people who will make comments about what they think my brother did or did not deserve. And what I will say is that we've mentioned a few times, my brother was a college student. I cleaned out his dorm. I was asked to clean out my brother's dorm after he was killed. And among my brother's belongings was a notebook full of contact information for therapists. My brother knew that he was having trouble and he wanted to get help. So this wasn't